We affirm Jesus is a way maker, that he provides a way for whatever we actually encounter. We also recognize that we still need to prepare. We still need to get ready and do our part. And as people, we prepare for many different things. As the month of January is getting ready to come to a close here in a week, a lot of us are receiving these documents in the mail that are to get us ready for tax time. You know, W-2s, 1099s, 1098s, all those wonderful things that you get. And you have to get all those things together and organized before you can file your taxes. Nobody likes to file. I've never met somebody who likes to file taxes. I know there are people who get paid to do it. I'm talking about I don't like to file my own taxes. And even people who get paid to do it, it's a stressful time. It's very busy, very just demanding on their schedule to do it. But we have to have our stuff organized before we can file our taxes and get ready to do it. Now, if there's someone in the Bible that had to get ready, and really before he knew what was coming, I would say it was probably Noah. Noah had this crazy story that at least people are somewhat familiar with the concept of Noah. But in Genesis chapter 6, we find Noah enters the scene. And as I start with verse 9, we find that Noah was a righteous man, the only blameless person living on earth, and he walked with God. He was the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now God saw that the earth had become corrupt and was filled with violence. He observed this violence and this corruption because everyone on earth was corrupt. That is the setting in which Noah lived. One of the things about Noah that sticks out is we see he's different. He's distinct. So even though there's all this corruption, all this violence, all this stuff that's contrary to God, Noah shines as a glimmer of hope. That there's something different, something unexpected. Now, Noah wasn't perfect. It said he was blameless. When I say perfect, he wasn't absolutely perfect. He made mistakes. He stumbled. He did normal human things in that regard. But the core of the issue is that Noah's loyalty was undivided. He was completely dedicated to God. He served him. He wasn't running after other things. He was trying to serve God, which was in complete contrast to the world in which he lived. Corruption, violence, sin, those types of things consumed what was happening. And God was appalled. He was hurt. He was bothered. Now this is Genesis chapter 6. Genesis, the first book in the Bible. And in Genesis chapter 1, just a few chapters earlier, is when God created the world. And when God created, it was good. We read that many times. It was good when God created. And so just in a few short chapters, creation was no longer good. Now there's a long time frame between Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 6. So it's not like it happened overnight. But creation was no longer good. Creation was engulfed in sin and despair and everything that was contrary to God. And so God, being a God of justice, being a God of truth, being a holy God, could not allow sin of this magnitude to go unchecked. And so he had to act. And he is getting ready to lay out his plan, almost as though I'd say kind of God has this checklist of what he is going to do and how he's going to do it and what he needs to do to get ready for it. And you know, we as people have checklists on for various reasons. And one of the things that come to mind is when you have company over. There's a lot of things you try to do to prepare for company. Now, I'm not talking about if somebody's coming over for dinner or watching the game. You don't have to prepare too much for that. You know, you can kind of have the sweep it under the rug mentality. You know, just throw it in the closet and hope nobody opens that closet. But when somebody's coming for the night, to stay for one night or multiple nights, you know, what you do changes. You know, you have to make sure the clean sheets on the bed, clean towels, make sure the trash is taken out, make sure there's food in the refrigerator for all the meals that you may have. You have to do all these things to prepare. Have to have this checklist. And so God is getting ready to do certain things, ready to intervene. And so he comes to Noah and he tells him that I have decided to destroy all living creatures, for they have filled the earth with violence. So he gives Noah this instruction: build a large boat or an ark made from cypress wood and waterproof it inside and out with tar. Construct decks and stalls throughout its interior. Make the boat 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet tall. Leave an 18-inch opening just below the roof all the way around the boat. Put the door on the side and build 3 decks inside the boat, lower, middle, and upper. And God continues, he says, I am about to cover the earth with a flood that will destroy everything that breathes. Everything on earth will die. This is the prophetic announcement that God gives Noah. Tells him that he's going to destroy the earth, wipe everything out, start over, clean slate. Now Noah hears this. Noah is the one who received this message. There's no indication that anybody else heard, but there's no indication that it was only given to Noah, that nobody else had the opportunity to hear as well. But what we find is that when we sin, when we choose to engage in things that are contrary to God, then our relationship with God changes. If we choose to reject God, that changes the dynamic of the relationship that we have with God. And that makes sense. I mean, we think of relationships with individuals. When we hurt somebody else, our relationship changes with them. Now, that doesn't mean we can't restore that relationship, but in that moment, the relationship changes. See, God didn't necessarily want to bring judgment and condemnation and the flood. This is not something that God was gleefully planning. There was agony and pain and just disappointment in God's mind as he was planning this, as he was getting ready to implement this flood. The earth would be destroyed. It would no longer support life. When God created, he created life, and he was going to destroy this life that he created. He didn't create so he would destroy. He created so life could thrive. But the corruption was so deep that this measure that God was going to take had to match it. He had to take drastic steps in order for the sin to be eradicated. So Noah builds the ark, and a very large vessel, to say the least. In fact, it's about 4.5, close to 5 times the size of the Mayflower. I really had no idea how big the Mayflower was before I was doing research on this. But you think of a boat that crosses the ocean, that people took risk to come to North America. I mean, the boat was 4.5 times bigger. And Noah's ability, or the technology that he had available to him was significantly less than even when the Mayflower crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Now, you think of today's technology, it would have been even crazier, but Noah did all this way before then. He built this large vessel, or God commanded him to build this large vessel. But there was no assurance that what God commanded would actually happen. Now, I'm not saying God would lie or pull a fast one on Noah, but there are times when God calls us to be faithful just for the sake of being faithful. Now, God doesn't waste our time. He has greater things in store. But Noah had to do this before the rain actually started. See, God is proclaiming this judgment, this flood, the destruction of the earth. And I said that there was agony and pain and disappointment in God's mind as he was proclaiming this and planning this. And we see that God, even though he was proclaiming judgment, provided a way for salvation to happen. He provided a way for Noah to be saved. It wasn't as though God wanted to destroy everything. He wanted life to thrive. He gives us life not so that we would be slaves or burdened or live terrible lives. He gives us life so that we can live it to the fullest. So after he tells Noah about the ark, he moves on to say, I'm bringing a flood. See, God hadn't mentioned the flood yet. He said he was going to destroy the earth and every living creature. Told Noah to build the ark, and now he is saying, I'm going to bring a flood. And so this flood cleanses the redemption, or the corruption, cleanses the sin, and all the things contrary to God. So metaphor is seen as both figurative. So the water is seen as both figurative and literal. See, it literally going to destroy life and purge the earth of those who are engaging in that behavior. But it's also figurative in the sense of it's the means that God purifies us spiritually. See, water can't literally purify spiritually. It can literally purify of life, but God is bringing water to spiritually cleanse the earth at the same time. And so as God is sharing this with Noah, as he's bringing this prophetic announcement, what God is saying is the rain is coming. It's coming. The flood's coming. Whatever that is coming. And there's two mindsets that we can have with this. We can either view the rain coming as this judgmental, condemning, wrathful, death-producing act of God. Or we can view it as a cleansing, healing, saving, life-giving act of God. So God didn't bring the flood because he wanted to destroy life. He brought the flood because life had been corrupted. And he wanted to restore that. He wanted to cleanse, to bring back. And so he calls Noah to prepare for the rain is coming. The world was contaminated. On a lot of levels, we could say it was icky. And as I think about things that are contaminated, I think of the fact of, as a parent, I have changed some contaminated diapers before. and one of the things that I have discovered is that you want to put yourself in a position for success when it comes to changing a diaper, right? You don't wait to get your supplies ready on changing a diaper. You don't take the old diaper off before you get your supplies ready, right? You have the other diaper, the wipe there, ready to make the transition smooth and quick. But I think what happens is a lot of times in life, people wait not just to get the supplies ready, but to have them. A dirty diaper is coming, right? I don't wait until the diaper is dirty to go purchase new diapers. I have them on hand, ready to go. And if this is humorous, this is comical, I think we live life spiritually like that sometimes. Oh, the rain's here, so now I got to get right. Now I got to spiritually prepare. God is telling Noah, the rain is coming. Get ready now. Not in a way that is to scare Noah, but in a way saying, here is the path of salvation. Because God comes and he gives Noah a good message, and he says, I will confirm my covenant with you. So enter the boat, you, your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives. Bring a pair of every kind of animal, male and female, into the boat to be kept alive during the flood. They will be sent to you. And be sure to take enough food for both your family and the animals. Noah did everything exactly as God commanded. So as I unpack this a little bit, I see that Noah was righteous and he was blameless. And his righteousness allowed for others to enter into this saving experience. Now, Noah's wife, his sons, his daughters-in-law, their spiritual health was not mentioned. It's just Noah walked with God, and because of that, he was able to bring others on that journey with him. Now, I'm not saying you can be saved for somebody else. There's a corporate understanding, communal understanding of following Jesus, but you have to make the decision for yourself. You don't enter the kingdom of heaven based on proximity, just because you're close to others who are serving Jesus. We have to make the decision ourselves, but because of Noah's spiritual leadership, his family was invited to join in with this. God provides means for redemption. He provides salvation. So in the fact that Noah was given this opportunity to be saved, we see that God is not harsh or vindictive or mean or distant. He wants life to thrive. Just the sin has contaminated so much that he has to purify. But in Noah, we find that God provides a way. He is the way maker. No matter what obstacle we have, no matter what's before us, no matter the difficulty or the uncertainty or the insurmountable concept before us, God provides a way. Now, with the story of Noah in particular, I think we need to be very careful because this story is just so crazy. You think of the animals being sent to Noah and kind of marching on the ark and all those types of things. And I've always been curious as to how the carnivores functioned. You know, that could have been a little awkward. Were they just on separate decks, or were they become herbivores during that time frame? I don't know. So, but what I'm getting at is we have to be careful that we don't just pick and choose what we want to believe. You know, I'm not saying that there's no metaphors listed in Scripture, but we have to be careful that we don't say, well, this is a fun, just moral story. Now, we believe, I would assume, that God can do this. Right? If He's all-powerful, as crazy as it may seem, on paper we would say God can do this. Right. Now, I've never seen it. I don't know anybody who has actually seen something of this power, this grandeur actually happening. But just think of, okay, God is the God of the universe. He's the one who created life. He sustains life. So make sure we don't just kind of dismiss this as just a good, fun story that gives us some cute VBS material or something like that. You know, this is God showing how He is cleansing the world. But we also see, you know, the animals aren't guilty in the same way the humans are. You know, we sin against God. Animals don't have the capacity to sin or not sin. They have the capacity to function, to live, but we are distinct from animals because we can have a relationship with God. But a lot of the animals are killed. I mean, in fact, most of the animals in the world are killed in this instance. So we see that the guilty and the non-guilty are living together. I mentioned in the beginning that Noah wasn't just absolutely perfect. It's not like he never just did anything wrong. And there were people that were also, I would guess, that weren't always doing things wrong. That they might have been living according to a moral code. They might have been doing things that they should have been doing, but they were choosing not to most of the time. So there was good and bad intertwined there, and we find that we have to be careful. That just because we're around those who are good doesn't mean we are good. Just because we're around those who are following Jesus doesn't mean we're following Jesus. So my point is to get at, it's not about proximity. It's just not about being close to those who are following Jesus. It's about making sure that I am accepting the salvation that Jesus is giving me and wants me to receive. But then we also think of the logistics of this. You know, the 450-foot boat by 75 feet, and just the mechanical just power that needed to be done in order for this large vessel to be constructed. I couldn't even begin to figure out how to do that now with all of our technological advancements. But Noah was able to do it thousands of years ago. And then we also think of the food that he had to actually have. You know, that's a lot of money. That he had to have food for himself. All right, you know, you need food for yourself, your family, but food for all the animals. The work, the time, the energy, the resources it took for Noah to get all of those things together was expensive, was logistically challenging. So part of what Noah shows us is we have to be ready, and being ready, we can't be lazy. We've got to work. It's not up to me to save myself, but I can't be indifferent. Noah shows us that we must prepare because the rain is coming. And I love how that section ends in Genesis chapter 6, verse 22. Noah did everything exactly as God commanded. There was no dialogue back and forth between Noah and God. It's not as though Noah was like, "Oh, God, are you sure? Can you give me a time frame?" There's no questions. Noah just obeyed. He did what God commanded him to do. But again, I want to reiterate this flood, the rain that God sent. It can be viewed in one or two ways. It can be viewed as wrathful, judgmental, condemning, and death-producing. Or it can be seen as cleansing, healing, saving, and life-giving. For Noah, that's what it was. For everyone else, it wasn't. For everyone else, it was judgment. It was condemnation. It was death. And it's a matter of Noah was prepared. He was ready. Now, the older I get, the more I recognize the value in stretching. You know, when I was younger, stretching was just kind of something you did because that's what you told you to do. And so all these people would be stretching, and I would just kind of, I stretch, those types of things. But there's been a couple of times in my life where I have strained my right quadricep muscle. And that's important because when I was playing baseball in college, and then even on the softball team I did it once, that when you take your lead on your base, you turn on your right foot and you push off. And I'm telling you what, if your right quadricep isn't feeling good, that pushing off doesn't work real well. And so what's happening, I find, is that when I've strained my muscle, that's when I recognize, stretching is really important. So what I try to do is I try to stretch more now to fix the problem. Well, if I stretch now, maybe it will not be strained anymore. And that's what we try to do. We try to make it retroactive. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't. A strained muscle doesn't heal because you stretch it. It heals because you rest and you give it you need to exercise it, but exercise it appropriately. We've got to stretch. We've got to get ready. We've got to prepare. Now, we don't know the actual climate that Noah was living in at the time, of how wet it was, how dry it was, but I am pretty confident that there were clear, sunny days where Noah was out working on the ark. So he was building the ark when there wasn't a rain cloud in the sky. He was working on this project that cost him time, money, likely credibility, because God told him to. Because God said, prepare for rain, because it's coming. But if we don't prepare for rain before it comes, that's when it becomes judgment, harsh, condemning, death-bringing. But because Noah prepared, it was different. It brought life. So our call, what God is telling us to do, is to prepare for rain. The task may seem humongous. It may seem too big for us to actually handle or to do ourselves. But the rain is coming. If we prepare, that's good news. If we don't prepare, it's bad news. Now, I don't think it's a secret. I love the fireplace that we have at our house. It is awesome. It's in our basement. I can walk around in shorts and t-shirt and sweat. Because I don't. But I try to turn the fire down. But anyway, the reality is, I didn't decide this morning, you know what? I think it would be good to go get some wood and start a fire. I need to go chop down a tree and get things ready. No, I started a long time ago. Finding wood that I could obtain to cut it in the size that would fit in the fireplace and chop it so it would stack better and dry better and all those types of things. And I would stack it and give it plenty of time to dry so that when I want to use it, it's ready to burn. And then when winter comes, I cover it with a tarp so rain and snow doesn't get on the wood and it works. But see, there's been a lot of days in July, when it's 95 degrees outside, now I'm chopping wood to start a fire. It's pretty hard to have the mentality of, this is a good idea. Now, I'm working when it's hot, so it can be hot to start a fire. And it's hard work, but I'm telling you what, in January it's worth it. Because I prepared in July, January is fun. It's warm. It's safe. It's a place that my family can enjoy and be together. But it only happened because I prepared. Now, I shared all of these kind of examples of how we prepare. And you can pick them apart and say, well, that doesn't necessarily theologically apply, or this kind of misses the mark here. But the reality is the rain is coming and we need to prepare. So let's not miss the act here. But one more that I want to share. They say the best time, I think I've shared this before. They say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And so I don't know what your preparation has been in regards to the spiritual rain that Jesus wants to bring in your life. Maybe you've been preparing for 20 years, but if you've been preparing for 20 years, you still need to tend to that tree. You need to prune it. You need to make sure the disease doesn't get on it. You need to make sure that it does have water and it's a safe place. Just because it's an established tree doesn't mean you don't pay attention to it anymore. But if you really have been preparing, what Jesus says is plant the tree today. The rain is coming. So you may be living in a time where things are going well, but Jesus says, still get ready. You may be at a time where my world is crumbling. You know what Jesus says? He says it's going to be okay. It may look like judgment. It may look like wrath. It may look like condemnation. It may look like death. But if you have prepared, the rain is a blessing. It brings cleansing. It brings healing. It brings purification. So I don't know where you are today. I want to challenge you. Prepare, for the rain is coming. And I say that with the idea that wherever you're going through, whatever's in front of you, it's going to be okay. Not because of who you are, but because of who Jesus is. He is the way maker who provides this opportunity, this way for us to overcome any obstacle.